So where did the poetry come from? Because we all wrote poetry, right?
Frustration, I think.
No, but I mean, was it like a virus where somebody started writing poetry? Because yesterday you showed us these copied poems from people that had given you poems. So we were handing them.
We were handing them round.
But we were intentionally our own audience for these.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. We certainly were our own audience for poetry. I think you like to think that you started off individually and then discovered that other people were doing it
Right.
at the same time. And I think it was to do with our reading as well, because we were reading the beat poets from
The Penguin.
the Penguin, that's right. And the introduction from standard, if you like, educational poetry was via E. Cummings and that lot, because they were accepted by the establishment as being poets,
Right.
and yet they were well away from, the Romantics.
Right.
And yes, and so we went from E. In fact, I know that a number of my poems at the time were heavily inspired by E. Cummings.
Right.
And then we started reading Kerouac and Ginsberg, and that was what started us, I think, trying to do, if you like, epic poetry.
Right.
We all did our little, shall we say, 4 or 5 liners, our equivalent to the sonnet, but then we went on to trying to do epic type poetry, several pages long. And I can remember, funnily enough, I did one, I call it something like Our Generation or something, and that was several pages long, and Hugh Dent from Plymouth College, who is the head of English, actually took it to a poet in Plymouth, a professional poet, as he called him, for a criticism. And I remember the bloke actually went through it line by line, and he was very positive about it, but it assured me that following the Ginsberg trail, so to speak, was a dead end, which is a joke, of course.
Right. One of the stories I can tell you is that when, at some point, before I got into our college, I went to the Plymouth Herald to get a job as, the Western Evening Standard or whatever it's called, to get a job as a journalist. And I wore a brown silk shot suit with a matching raincoat. And the examples of writing I took in to become a journalist were my poems. And I met this editor, and he was very nice, and he said, well, I think that what we do, and I think you should keep writing, but what we do and what you're doing is like not quite the same.
Two different things, chalk and cheese. Right, I can believe that. Yeah, because
But we did have the possibility to publish some of these poems in the Plymouthonian, right?
Yes, that's right, in the school magazine, essentially. Yeah.
Right.
Which I suppose was fairly good of them, but they took the tamer ones, of course. Yeah.
So it was like I think of it also as a sort of diaristic form that we had in our sort of adolescent,
That's right.
deprived lives.
Yeah. Well, everything that was slightly out of the ordinary was a major event.
Yeah. Well, also our budding, romance stories are heavily documented there too.
Yes, indeed.
The failures more than the successes.
They were always failures, weren't they? Oh dear. But then if you look at the Romantic poets, they were all failures too, weren't they?
Right. Yeah,
so I think it was all to do with hormones,
I
suspect, and frustration. Young things were happening to us that we didn't understand.
Right.
Yeah. So.